This is the disease-specific research update session, and I am pleased to introduce our group of presenters this morning. I'm going to let them determine their order, but we have Alison Freed, Lake and Burnt, Dr. Penelope Hogarth, Dr. Shukri Ben Mamoon, Dr. Suzanne Jakowski, and Dr. David Gretler. Welcome.
For some reason, the slides, can everybody hear me, or do I? Can you hear me? Okay. So my name is Alison Freed. I'm the other Alison with our group. I say I'm the Alison with one L, even though my name tag in the program all has two L's, but I have one L. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for many of you who participate in PKANready. For those of you who don't know what PKANready is, it's our natural history study of pecan. We collect data every 6 months over from individuals over the course of the disease, and trying to better define the disease and then get information that we can use so that we can compare therapies that may impact the outcome of the disease. As I go through the slides, I will be pointing out some areas where that impact may be seen. And finally, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has contributed. As I mentioned, this study requires individual efforts. Every 6 months, NAGI emails from me, and those efforts, Chris is smiling, the efforts provide the whole PKAN community with benefit, so we really appreciate that. So the next slide is the clicker, is that here? Yeah, okay, great. So who's in PKANready? We have had 141 total enrollees. We currently have 90 active participants. Unfortunately, some of those have passed away, so that's why we've dropped to 90. But the majority of the people that aren't enrolled currently are international people that have enrolled, and as English isn't their first language, the burden of doing the surveys has been too great, so they've dropped out. Our age range is from 3 years old to 66 years old, with our youngest enrollee being 6 months at the time of enrollment. We have more males than females. Males are evenly divided between classic and atypical PKAN, and females tend to, at least at this point, are more classic patients. So speaking of classic and atypical, let's define what that means, because the rest of the slides of this talk are talking about are split in between classics and atypicals. So, next slide. So classic participants are defined as those with onset of movement symptoms before the age of 5 and or loss of independent walking by the age of 10. So looking at the difference between classics and atypicals, this first, let's see, this is our pointer. So this is an average of the first symptoms seen. So that's for classics, it's at 1.5 years, and for atypicals, the average is 13 years of age. For diagnosis, 4 years of age for classics and 18 for atypicals. And the thing about the diagnosis age in atypicals, it's a wide range. You have as early as early teens to well into your 30s or 40s even. The length of time between diagnosis and symptoms is much longer in atypicals, 3 years for classics, and then doubled at 6 years for atypical, meaning it's taken 6 years from the time of first symptom to figuring out what's going on and having a diagnosis. And the next graph is medication. So this would be the start of motor movement medication, so treatment for the symptoms. For classic participants, that's usually 6 years, or on average it's been 6 years, and 18 for atypicals. And that first medication that's usually used is either baclofen or Artane. Both of those are very closely used. The medication graph that I have coming up will be an example of areas that we can maybe see benefit. So if we were to change a therapy that would maybe delay the onset of symptoms such that you wouldn't need to start medication, this graph is where we can see that difference. So the importance of the natural history is seen in those kinds of data points. So this graph represents the first symptoms seen. In our surveys, we ask, what was your first symptom? Often, and it's a text box, so we have multiple symptoms that people will list there, and all of those listed symptoms have been tabulated here. The developmental delay is obviously seen in classic PKAN because of their early onset symptoms, and is not mentioned at all in atypical patients. Walking and balance is consistent through both. That is one of the bigger symptoms that's mentioned. Tremors and tics tend to be just with atypicals. And same with writing and handwriting spasm, and that's also due to the early onset. Typically small children, we wouldn't expect them to be using their hands efficiently or, writing. And then this is some graphs of the medication that's first used. We record all the medications that are used for participants, but we do it in order of their attempted use or first prescribed. So the Artane and baclofen are utilized the most, with Botox coming in second, with 40% of the population having tried it at least, if not using it consistently. The classic PKAN participants tend to rely more heavily on PAM medications, or like benzodiazepines for symptom relief. So that's like diazepam, lorazepam, any of the PAMs. And then atypicals tend to try the dopamine interacting medications like levodopa or amantadine more often. So this is basically a first cut at our data, just to show you guys what it looks like and what we can have. We are anticipating looking at more individual data with more intense statisticians, and we're just hoping to keep collecting data to get as much of it as we can. We'll be able to look at the efficiencies of new therapies with this kind of data. And I wanted to thank everybody who has enrolled and been participating. Like I say, yep, Chris. I really appreciate everybody's time and effort, and it is your willingness to help the whole community that is so wonderful. And then here is our team. Sometimes you get emails from Dustin, who's the big guy in the green in the middle. And Sue and Helena are back home with all of those samples that we collected earlier today, or earlier this week, and hoping to get another package this morning. And then this is our previous sponsors for the study. So I'll hand it over to Lakin.